Said the night when to the little lamb, to the shepherd, do you see what I see? You hear what I hear? Way up in the sky, little lamb, the night shepherd, do you see what I see? Do you hear what I hear? A song, high above the trees, with the voice as big as the sea, with the voice as big as the sea.
Merry Christmas, everyone. Flip-a-ponami. Welcome to episode 59 of the Flipside podcast. I am here with my man, Chase Stansel. What's up, Chase? Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, bro.
Merry Christmas. And what listeners hear in the background is 9 Chase Stansels, a 3x3 grid of Chase's singing face on his Facebook page, singing Do You Hear What I Hear? Chase, how in the world did you pull off this musical? It's awesome. It's so cool. What made you do that, and how'd you pull it off?
So I'll say every. That would be a stretch. But I've done this for several years now. I started back in 2015 because I discovered the acapella app, which allows you to create acapella arrangements, or people still use instrumentation or whatever, but basically you can record over, on kind of layer over on top of yourself or on top of whatever, other video you want. So I started doing them, just kind of recording them live that way back in 2015. I did like 4 or 5 Christmas carols then. Then it was like, it's a fun way to do Christmas carols now because it's the 21st century and we don't have to go stand outside each other's houses anymore. So
nice.
And so I started doing them, and then I did another group of like 4 in 2018. Then I did 2 last year, and this is the 3rd one from this year. And so now I've actually started some kind of. I guess it's a little bit more complex now. I do some recording in the studio, and then I go through, mix it, and all that stuff, and then record the video afterwards. And so it has a little bit more control, a bit better quality, and that kind of stuff. So
nice.
So that's the 3rd one from this year. And I really only put them on Facebook. I also put them on my YouTube channel, but it's really just for the fun of being able to Christmas carol. It's really what it is. So I really am only engaged on Facebook in terms of social media. Mm-hmm. So I basically treat it like me going around to my neighbors because they're in my nice. my internet neighborhood.
Yes, I love it. That's awesome. So, what is your favorite Christmas carol?
Ooh, I think my favorite Christmas carol is O Come Emmanuel.
Oh yeah.
I love the contrast musically and lyrically, because so a little bit of music theory, like it's the whole thing is in minor, which is kind of this like dark, almost scary scale, chord progression or what's the key, whatever. My brain is not thinking, but the lyrics talking about the coming of Emmanuel, God with us, and so that contrast. And then when you break into the rejoice, it switches into a major mode, which is like so many musical things. It's like genius. It's one of my favorite. Well, it is my favorite.
Yeah. That's funny. Maybe it's a pastor thing, but that is what I was going to say is my favorite Christmas carol as well. And
it's a brother thing. It's because we're brothers.
That's right. That's right. It's the official Flipside sanctioned, favorite Christmas carol.
There it is.
But I like it because of the lyrics. I feel like it's a song we could sing year round. It's just it has
absolutely
like rich theology to it and just rich worshipful themes. And I listen to it. I have it on a worship playlist, that I just listen to. I listen to year round, and so that's cool. I got to give a shout out though that too this year I've been listening to a lot of Pentatonix Christmas, and they are they kill it. They are
my gosh,
the most fun I think Christmas music to listen to. Just the way they do different songs, and it's pretty great.
I feel sad for everyone else who puts out Christmas albums now because they get no play. Because
right.
like Pentatonix has basically monopolized Christmas music. And I shouldn't say it monopolized. I mean, there's still some great things, but honestly, like our family, like my kids, when we were decorating the house, they're like, "Can we turn on some Pentatonix and decorate the house?" Like,
right.
My 15-year-old son said, like, now it feels like Christmas. Pentatonix is playing. Like, literally, these are his words.
Yeah, they're good, man. They're good.
So
they're good.
It's become synonymous in our home with the feeling of Christmas.
Yeah. All right, think back to your childhood. What was your favorite Christmas present or most memorable Christmas present that you ever received? Or adulthood, your lifetime.
The most memorable one is when Noah got me a Tesla. No.
You must know a different Noah.
No.
I got you a Flipside. I got you a Flipside mug.
You didn't give me a Flipside mug, but that wasn't for Christmas.
It's almost as good. Christmas. No, but
no.
I got it for you.
You did. I think, honestly, the most memorable one it was. I think I was 16. I think it was 16. My parents bought me a keyboard, like a electric piano. We used to go to Sam's Club like every weekend. That was like our family trip. It was Sam's Club.
Nice free samples.
And they had this Casio, which, for people who play like keyboard is kind of a lesser respected brand, but it's on the lower end in terms of cost. But it just had so many different sounds I could play. Like I basically learned how to work the keyboard at Sam's Club because every weekend we would go and I would be there at the keyboard playing while they shopped. And,
oh, nice.
And it was Casio 1630. That was the model number. And they asked us what we wanted for Christmas. And I was like, I only want that. It was like $300 something. And I was like, I only want that. This keyboard. And they was like, are you sure you don't want anything else? Like, I don't want anything else. That's all I want. Like, it's really expensive, so I don't want anything else. And then Christmas, like I came downstairs and this big old full size, like 88 keys keyboard, like with a bow on it. They also got a globe for me because I'm a bit of a nerd, and like every year for like maybe 10 years I always asked for a globe, but they actually weren't able to like get it or couldn't find one or whatever, so they got me a globe that year too. But those are my only two gifts, and I played that keyboard all day long. Like
love it.
It's where I learned how to record music and do different stuff like that. So it's the most memorable because it's really the first time in my life where where I was asked specifically, like, what do you want? And this is the only thing I want, and it's the only thing I got. And it was exactly what I wanted for Christmas. So it was perfect.
That's
awesome. What about you?
That's
you
awesome.
asked it like,
yes. Yeah. No, my story's funny because it's so there's the reason it's so memorable in the context of my house. my parents had this rule. It was just a rule. They were never gonna buy us video games, so we had to buy our own, basically, right? So when I was really young, we had an Atari. So an Atari 2600, Atari. I think the next one was like a 3800 or something like that. And then my friends were all getting Nintendos, the original Nintendo NES. And man, I wanted the Nintendo really bad. And I was young, like I didn't have a job or anything. So, and my parents, they did not buy us one. We never owned a Nintendo. I ended up buying a Nintendo 10 years ago off eBay and bought all the games that I never played. I played at my friend. I should say that the games I played at my friends' houses, I collected them all, and I have them now as an adult, and I play them from time to time. They're most fun to play with other people. But reliving my childhood that I lived at my friends' houses. So when I was in third grade back in the day, I don't think you can do this anymore, but I had a paper route. In third grade, my brother had a paper route. He was in fifth grade, and we would save our money up, and we saved up our paper route money. We bought ourselves a Super Nintendo, and, you know, as a kid, and not like it's different than adulthood, it's like whatever you have is never enough, you know? So there's always, we were always wanting more, like asking our mom and dad to buy us games, and they never would. It was just this rule. They were not going to buy us video games, and so we would save up. Games back then, I mean, I don't play video games anymore. And I know now it's all online. I don't keep up with it. But it was like $60 for a cartridge back then. And this was like when I was in like third grade, you know, $60 is a lot of money.
It's still that much.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like when I saw games now, I'm like, did inflation not hit video games? Aren't they still like $60 for a game? But that was a lot of money back when I was in third grade. So. Anyway, this one Christmas, I opened up a gift, and I'm in sixth grade, so zero thought or expectation that I would get a video game. And for most kids, it's like that's probably normal. Their parents buy them, video games. And this was like a hard and fast rule. And I opened up. And it was Donkey Kong Country on Super Nintendo, which was a huge game. A huge game back then. Dude, it is so memorable to me because my parents completely broke their own rule, right? They got me this game that I really wanted, and it was just to me. It wasn't to me and my brothers. It was just my gift. And yeah, my whole lifetime of getting gifts, I would say, like Christmas gifts, that's probably the most memorable, but just because it was such a weird, I don't know, my parents, they broke their own rule, and they didn't do that. They didn't break their own rules. So
clearly they were showing you another side of themselves.
One time, there's a first for everything. There's a first for everything. Yeah. So they have
this like secret life, like with aliases where they're breaking rules all the time, buying random strangers video games.
Oh man.
They just go by Mr. and Mrs.
As a parent now, I am in favor of limiting video games of children and screen time in general. I swear, I think my kids would just sit in front of a screen their entire life if I let them. They wouldn't eat or sleep or go to the bathroom. They would just sit there watching a screen.
In terms of how, like, honestly, I too want to limit that, and we do in our home, both limit time and access to the World Wide Web. However, there is not likely one more valuable privilege in their life to be taken away as a potential negative consequence.
Right.
So like that's kind of like my first go-to. Oh, your room not clean? Okay, you ain't playing video games. No?
Right.
Like, oh, okay, great. So you just not following directions today. Oh, okay, well then no video games.
Yes.
and no computer. There.
Dude, so true. All right, here's a deep one. This will get in the controversy of the controversy the flip side is known for. Do you and your wife tell your kid? And I know your kids are older now, and so you have younger kids and older kids. So share the age of your kids. And have you done Santa Claus with your kids? Have you told them that's Santa's real and all these things, or were you straight up with them from the beginning?
So our kids ages are 15, 12, 10, and 7. And no, we've never done Santa Claus in our home. And so I feel like sometimes that can come off as like, especially as pastors, it can come off as like super religious and like, oh, you're not doing Santa Claus because it's Jesus's birthday. And that's not really it. Honestly, but there is like spiritual and faith implications. When we were first parents, or the early years of parenting, we just recognized that like for a child, faith is pretty fragile, and for them to trust us as parents to reveal a world to them that is real, we wanted to not muddy the water at all. To just be honest, we didn't want to muddy the water. And as young parents, we couldn't figure out how to allow our children to potentially enjoy the fantasy of Santa Claus, as in being caught up in the real, like thinking that Santa is real and believing that Jesus is real.
Right.
We just couldn't figure that out. So like we joke around about Santa, right? Like, it's not like, you can't see Santa in this house. Like, we'll joke around, but our kids have known that we are the ones who give them gifts. And we've then began to see some real value in celebrating how we get to give each other gifts and that kind of thing. It's like, it's a way in which we show our love for one another, to exchange gifts and to love each other practically that way. So we're like, we've not been like super religious, like, in that regard, but we have been super practical. And I think that it's paid off because our kids really do enjoy giving gifts as well as receiving them. So yeah.
Yeah, dude. I think I've done a Noah's rant before on Santa. I don't remember if I have, because I've done so many Noah's rants at this point. So I'm going to do I might end up doing a mini Noah's rant right here about Santa.
Do I get to be a part?
Well, it's just a mini. It's not the real thing. It's kind of like Santa. It's kind of like Santa.
You need to give me my own rant one day. I'm going to take my own rant.
This is like the Santa version, because it's not the real Noah's rant. This is just a fake. This is a fake. This is like the guy at the mall.
This is Noah's rant light.
This is the guy at the mall wearing the fake beard. So, All right. So in my house, and if listeners haven't known yet, most of my Noah's rant are just self-therapy for me, like, needing to vent about something in my marriage that my wife and I disagree on or something. So, my wife, who is wonderful, she has told our children from the get-go that there is a Santa Claus. And I, being the Enneagram 8 that I am, have told my children there is no Santa Claus. I've told them from the very beginning. And And so I say all this tongue-in-cheek. This is all lighthearted. Okay, this is all lighthearted. But I think it's really weird that parents just lie to their children. Just lie. Yeah, there's this dude in a red suit, and he's fat, and he comes down the chimney, and he gives you gifts, and you give him cookies, and for one, kids believe this stuff. Like, that's the thing. That's what you were saying about mixing in truth with Jesus and stuff. You're like, it's crazy what kids will believe. Like, kids will believe this ridiculous notion that Santa, in one night he flies around the world and all these gifts and be naughty and nice. And the other thing is, like, my wife and I spend a lot of money on our kids for Christmas. Mostly my wife. If it was me, I'd probably spend a lot less. But this is our money. Like, they're gifts from us. I want credit for these gifts.
Yeah.
And they're like Santa gave me this. I'm like, no, he didn't. me and mom gave you that. That's from us. Like, we gave you that gift. This fake made up dude who doesn't even exist is getting credit for all the gifts that I got my kids and paid for. That's ridiculous. So, dude, my kids are like, they're 10, 8, and 4. I have 3 girls, 10, 8, and 4. And literally every year, I'm like, Santa's not real. In all 3 of my kids, it's this thing, yes, he is. Like, they yell at me. It's like this thing in our house that he's real, and they'll sing the.
So that's kind of fun, though.
It is fun. What's the song? They like Grandma Got Run Over by a Reindeer. That's a favorite in our house, and it says,
goodness.
What does this song go? As
Grandma got run over by a reindeer coming home from our house Christmas Eve. You may think there's no such thing as Santa.
And they always go,
as for me and Grandpa, we believe.
They go, you might think there's no such thing as Santa. And they go, like Daddy. And that is very true. So seriously, now listen. So this year, for whatever reason, my wife decides to tell my 10-year-old to break. And I think it's because she's 10. Like, she's in 4th grade. Kids are kind of old enough, they know, are starting to realize, like, this isn't real. And she doesn't want her to get made fun of at school, okay? Like, and she's really believes this stuff. And so I want to be sensitive because this is my daughter's real life, and she's not young. She's young enough that she will not care what I say on a podcast at this phase of her life.
She's not listening.
She's not listening, and nor will she go back into the archives, 6 years from now when she's 16 or something.
That's great.
But for legit, she was really sad when my wife told her. And first of all, I'm like, I've been telling you this your whole life, and you never believed me. But now, so anyway,
she's gonna come. She's gonna come to you in 2 years and sit you down like that. I want to thank you for wanting to tell me the truth for all those years, and I didn't believe you, and I believe you now.
But legit, like I'll spin this to something that is like back to what you were saying, something that's on the more spiritual side of things with kids and their faith. And I don't care what listeners do. I have no axe to grind against Santa. I do think it's a weird, strange cultural concept where we do lie to our children. But it did strike me how naive my kids really are. They really believe that Santa's real, and we do the little elf on the shelf thing where it moves at night and they all believe this is like magic and the elf is moving, and it's like, don't my kids think, like, aren't they? But you go, that's how a kid's mind is, right? And I thought about this. A friend of mine recently, a guy, a friend my age with kids around my age, he was excited that his kids, 2 of his kids, they prayed the prayer to believe in Jesus, to like ask Jesus into their heart, sort of thing. It is nice, but this is what it made me think. I thought, and this is what I was brought up in, was like salvation for children and salvation for adults too. It's like, we want you to believe in Jesus. That's what we kind of tell our kids. To be saved, you believe in Jesus. Believe what? Well, believe that he died on the cross for your sins, and ask him to forgive your sins. You're forgiven. And we would, like, I was 4 years old when I like prayed the prayer. I was 8 years old when I got baptized, and I thought about my friends' kids, and I thought about my kids, and I thought, legit, I could tell my kids absolutely anything I wanted about Jesus, and they would believe it. They would absolutely believe it because they believe in Santa Claus. They believe in the Tooth Fairy. They believe Elf on the Shelf moves around at night, and all that stuff is absolutely ridiculous. And what it got me thinking about was they're not mutually exclusive things. So these aren't 2 different things. But I want to teach my kids to love Jesus. I want to teach them to experience Jesus' love for them, because as you get older, and I've struggled through my own like deconstruction of faith and doubts about faith, and I've seen many friends from my church that I pastor, friends from college, Christian college, went to college, who later leave their faith. They leave their faith because they had a belief in Jesus as a child that was like a Santa Claus type of belief, and then this archaeological fact came whizzing their way, or they read something about something, and their faith got debunked, and they left their faith, and I think that's really easy to do when we just teach our children to just believe in Jesus when they'll kind of believe anything at that phase.
Right.
And so I don't know, it's just something I've been thinking about. I'm gonna, when I have time, which is never, I'm gonna write a blog post about teaching our children to love Jesus and to be loved by Jesus. What does it mean to experience his love? Because I've experienced his love, and that's why I didn't leave my faith when I read some stuff, archaeological stuff, and heard stuff, frankly, in seminary that really messed with some of my paradigms. And I went down some of those rabbit holes, and the reason I didn't leave my faith is because I know Jesus, I've met him, I've experienced his love. And so, anyway, I know there
is a big difference.
Yeah.
That is a big difference.
Yeah.
And that matters. That matters a whole lot. I'm glad you said that. That's really good.
That's good podcast content.
It is.
But yeah, so the Santa thing, honestly, just led into that. In fact, and I've mixed, I'm a little congested, sorry. I have mixed feelings.
Whatever, you're crying.
I am crying. Oh, I need to say, props to, I'm drinking, not Angry Brew this morning, but Chris's Blend from 5 Lakes. So 5 Lakes is the coffee company that makes Angry Brew. And so we are sponsored by Angry Brew, but technically sponsored by 5 Lakes. And so Chris's Blend is their medium roast, and $1 of every bag goes to an orphanage in Honduras, which is very cool. And so listeners know that they can go to 5lakes.com and pick up a bag of Chris's Blend or Angry Brew using promo code FLIP. Don't forget the promo code FLIP for 10% off. 10% off. So,
is that like Kris Kringle? Like, who's Chris?
Chris is it's a good question. Chris is it's actually a sad story. So, but she's a woman whose face is on the cover of the I think short for Christine, and she she passed away of cancer. She was the wife of I'm gonna get it wrong. So a friend of mine and his brother own the coffee company, and she's one of their relatives. I want to say a sister-in-law. I believe a sister-in-law of the owners. She passed away from cancer, and she was heavily involved in this orphanage. It's a Christian ministry in Honduras, and she took trips there and was a big advocate of them. And so, in memory of her, they give money to this orphanage whenever a bag is sold. So good question.
That's great. That's really great. Yeah. I like that. I appreciate the backstory on that.
Yeah. So I was just saying I'm drinking the coffee is helping me not to clear out my system here, my so I can talk. What I was going to with just asking about Santa Claus and stuff, I was going to say this. I heard a funny quote from John Piper, and I've kind of mixed feelings on Piper as a whole, but this was kind of funny. He was being interviewed on a radio show, like just some actual, I don't think it was a Christian radio show, it was just a radio show, and they asked him what he said about what his thoughts were on Santa Claus, and he said he preferred Jesus to Santa Claus because Santa is a legalist and Jesus gives you grace. And so, I thought it was funny. Because Santa says, if you're nice, I'll give you presents. But if you're naughty, no presents for you. And Jesus says, you get salvation, even though you're naughty.
You get some presents regardless.
Regardless, I thought that
was
funny.
With a C and an E. Get it? Some presents.
Oh, I like that.
See, you do. You see
I
what
like
I
that.
There you go.
Yeah. Listeners are wondering, what's he talking about? So let me explain this. Presents, TS, presents, CE at the end. God's presents. There we go. Very good. We're working it now. All right.
That's great.
So my last, I don't know, a question I wanted us to talk about content-wise, as far as, hey, it's a Christmas special, but what do you like to, and the thing is, when you've been pastoring a while too, for me, Christmas comes every year, right? It's like, okay, here it comes December again, and maybe you do Advent, maybe you don't. But there's this feeling from how do you approach December when it comes as a pastor? Do you like kind of preaching on the same message every single year? Because it's that sort of reminder, it's sort of a tradition, or do you kind of feel like that gets kind of dry and stale, and people kind of maybe numb out to it? So I wanna be a little more provocative. I want to freshen things up. How do you generally approach December when it comes to preaching? And what did you do? What did you do this last December? What message did you give your church when it comes to this season?
So this is actually a really it's a really good question. I did not grow up in a Christian tradition where we talked about like Advent and even like saying Christmas carols during the worship gathering. That was not a thing for us growing up. So it honestly is, to be honest, it's still very awkward for me to like sing Joy to the World during a worship service.
Yeah.
It's very, very awkward for me. But that's a part of countless humans' traditions, and so as a multi-ethnic church, it kind of we've intentionally blended traditions and blended ways of doing things. So we won't like sing all Christmas music all throughout December, or even even up that last week before Christmas, we'll still kind of mix in some other things. But because I didn't grow up with a kind of a focus on Advent, I didn't understand Advent until I was in my late 20s. But I have begun to really appreciate what it does in terms of reminding us of what Israel was waiting for, was anticipating in terms of Messiah's initial coming. And the realization of that anticipation from a theological standpoint, that is great, but also what it does for reminding us of we are in a waiting period as well and anticipating Christ's return. And so every year at this time, we do focus on the first coming, the anticipation of the first coming of Christ. But we also blend, every sermon is this blend of remembering the first coming and reminding us of our anticipation of the second coming.
Nice.
and really us placing ourselves in the mental and emotional space of those waiting on Messiah initially. And what that, and I intentionally am blending the use of the word Messiah and Christ as well, because that honestly is a piece of that puzzle. We're more, as Christians, used to calling Christ. We're used to calling Jesus Christ, right? But at that time, they were anticipating Messiah, with the Hebrew for anointed one, right? Chosen one. So same meaning, but these two titles, they become really blended at this time of the year for me. And I love that. So I do not like preaching the same sermon ever. I never like preaching the same sermon. I don't even memorize my sermons because of that. Because I feel like I will need to say the same thing and I trip over my words. So ultimately, as a bit more of an improvisational person in general, I do preach on the same themes. And during Advent, we take like the traditional Advent kind of candle meanings, or for some people like the wreath, they like use like bulbs or whatever. And so weekly, we'll preach on hope and joy and peace and love and Christ and that kind of thing. But there's always a different spin, and not from a controversial standpoint, but just from a relevant standpoint. And like last year, the Hope Week, I preached on hope and hope being here, but that week leading up to that Sunday, there was this like headline, "Hope is here," but it was talking about the COVID vaccine.
Yeah.
And it became a great moment to kind of reaffirm our hope in Christ, whereas there's a world around us that would invite us to place our hope in other things. And so really it's that kind of stuff. It's to, again, remind us that all of this anticipation that they were initially experiencing was the anticipation of Messiah coming. And so they were tempted by a world to get them to place their hope in joy and peace and other things too. And so are we. We're not any different. Our hope, our love, our peace, our joy is centered on the person of Christ. And that's really becomes those sermons for me.
Yeah, man. Yeah. No, I there's some similarity in what you said about, the weirdness for me of singing "Joy to the World" in a worship service. I know. So thinking of when I'm pastoring in Lansing for those 13 years, and this will be us again next December with Mosaic here in Grand Rapids. But I always, I think what always gets me is with those types of songs is, are people really worshiping, when they're singing those Christmas carols, or are they just singing them because it's Christmas? It's like a religious ritual almost, like, hey, it just feels weird. Some of those songs, some of them, like "O Come Emmanuel," for example, is a rich song, theologically and thematically. But I don't know. And a lot of those songs, if you really pay attention to the lyrics, there's good stuff in there. But some of them feel so worn out in the sense that if we're singing "Hark the Herald Angels Sing" or even "O Come All You Faithful," it just goes, even though those are, if you read the words, they're good words, but do we really mean the words while we're singing them? And I hope yes. It does feel weird to me to sing them in worship. But what happened to us is we wouldn't really do a lot of Christmas carols in our church, and people in our church wanted them. They were kind of giving feedback of saying, hey, we want these songs. And so I think for some people it does help. It does help them kind of stay rooted. I will say, when it comes to Advent, I didn't grow up in Advent either, and so it doesn't come naturally for me to do Advent. But one of the things I like about Advent is I feel like every year we have Thanksgiving, which is this day supposedly to be grateful and thankful. And then the very next day is Black Friday, which is this day to buy and be a consumer. And from then on, the whole month of December, the TV commercials are just outrageous. Every commercial is about how you don't have enough and you need more. It's like the total opposite of Thanksgiving. And it's about, like the car commercials with the big bow on top. Think about that for a second. Nobody's really buying cars for other people as gifts. People buy cars for themselves. And so it's just like this season of buying. It's a season of buying stuff for yourself. And even like cell phones. Oh my goodness. Like the cell phone commercials during Christmas it's this message of what you have isn't enough. And if you buy this, you'll be satisfied. You'll finally have arrived. And, for kids, it's toy after toy after toy, kind of the same message. So I've come to appreciate anything culturally we can do to sort of go against the flow of that materialism and consumerism. And I think Advent is one of those things that helps do that. It's this thing that's, you light this candle, you read this reflection, you're resisting against, you're resisting against that flow. And lastly, I would say, as far as messages go, I tend to avoid baby Jesus Christmas messages. I think in a certain respect, all of the Hallmark baby Jesus stuff, the Precious Moments baby Jesus stuff, the nativity scenes to a degree baby Jesus stuff, it puts us in control of little innocent baby Jesus. Like, yeah, little baby Jesus, he's so cute. Oh, look, and even the pageantry. There's so much pageantry around it, and that's fine. But if in that pageantry we forget that baby grew up to be an adult who brought a kingdom, and he brought a kingdom that is very countercultural to this kingdom, and so that could just be my 8 personality coming out and wanting to give I want to give a prophetic message of like, yo, Jesus is not a little baby to have a pageant around. He is a king with an upside down kingdom, and he says the last will be first and the first will be last. That's my Christmas message.
Yes!
I don't want us to forget Jesus. I think we can forget Jesus in Christmas because we're so busy remembering baby Jesus in the manger and the pageantry that we forget this revolutionary countercultural Jesus who brought a new kingdom. And all of the Advent, hope and peace and joy, they're all there in King Jesus. So I like to tie all that stuff together. It's not that I'm not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. I just want to wrap it all up into one.
The baby out.
Ha!
You're throwing
the baby.
You're literally throwing the baby out.
No, I'm not.
Just kidding. No.
But do you see that? I think sometimes we miss the. I don't know. There's a reason that Jesus' message, when he taught his message, all these crowds were like, "Yo, this dude is it." He had all the masses, and then he starts teaching about the kingdom, and they go, "Oh, I don't want to do that. I don't want it," and they left. They left him.
So I would say that while I agree with you in terms of how we can fairy tale and make Christmas a bit of a fantasy. I do think though that there is a balance in, like, we can drive hard for the kingdom, drive hard for the person of Christ in terms of the mission of Christ and the role as Christ as king, and even the role of Christ as advocate and warrior, right? Like, there are some parts of Christ that is that. But I also think Christmas presents us with an opportunity to also rest from that pushing. And I think that is what, I think if we lean into resting, not over, like, again, fairy telling it, but it's a unique season to pull back from the pushing, because Christ is king, Christ is warrior, Christ is Lord, but Christ also is rest, right? Christ also has positioned us to be in a space where we can rest in him. And so I think that Christmas becomes one of those moments where it's not about being, it's not about being the caricature of what we want Christ to be, but it's also not about being the world changer for a moment. It's also about being able to embrace even some of the good that is still steeped in what Creator God declared was good, right? And so I do think that, like, they're like that balance, at least for myself, I've found that that's kind of where I land during this time, during Advent, is I'm not pushing for transformation of the world. I'm allowing myself to settle into the rest that is the good that God already has done and is doing. And so I hear what you're saying, but I feel like I've kind of settled that for myself in that space. But I'm not an 8. So you're
That's
like,
right.
y'all always pushing.
We're always
like,
fighting.
There's
man.
an envelope I can blow up.
If we're not fighting, we're bored. We're like, what is there?
You're bored.
There's
like,
no fight right now.
What are you gonna do with your life? What is this?
Yeah. And I will say,
wait. Though with the Christmas carols, though, real one thing, I have had that same issue. Like, are you like really worshiping? Like, is that a real thing? Because I also, like, as a worship leader, like, it's like, I don't know what's happening now. Like, are you thinking about the mall or are you thinking about Jesus? When I hear right? Yeah. But I have had conversation with a number of people about it, and for many people, specifically singing Christmas hymns, not just just your random Christmas song, but specifically singing Christmas hymns brings them into a space of remembering.
Yeah.
So for those people who are not like as cerebral as you and I can be as it relates to theology, but land a little bit more on that emotional side of who they are, those Christmas hymns become the thing that draws them into remembering, probably more so than any really good Advent sermon.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. And shout out on Christmas hymns to all the other verses. So if you do Christmas hymns, Joy to the World verses 2, 3, and 4, they're the verses we've never heard before, haven't heard very often. And those, that's what I like to. I just like to mess with people's brains, because if you just sing the first verse of Joy to the World, it's just kind of like Joy to the World. Oh yeah, it's Christmas in America and blah blah blah. Whatever. Let's get through this so we can go eat some ham and open up some presents. And then you go to verses 2, 3, and 4, and I don't remember them offhand. Maybe I'll look them up real quick. But they're deep, man. Like you read them and you go, I've never even heard this before, and you're getting a sermon in a song, and I like that because it makes you think. It makes you stop and go, like, yo, this is theology and worship and the gospel, and they really bring out they're really gospel songs is what they are. Yeah.
Yes, so, they are, right? Like the second verse is like Joy to the World, the Savior reigns. Yeah. The last verse, like He rules the world with truth and love. Like they're pretty. Like you're right. Like, but that is a benefit. Like that right there is like, okay, I'm with you there. Yeah. We're doing a special on this, just chestnuts roasting on an open fire. Well, you can keep that for Saturday. Okay, yeah, you can keep that for Saturday and for Monday. Yeah. But Sunday, and don't you sing "Mary Did You Know?" Because she knew.
She knew. That song. I sing that song at my house all the time. I'm like, Mary, did you know that your baby boy would someday rule the nations? My kids.
I was joking around the dinner table, a couple days ago, talking about that. Like, if she actually had to answer the questions, yes, I knew.
My wife.
Yes, I was there. I was there. The angel told me.
On Facebook, my wife found someone who wrote their own lyrics to that, and it was like. It was the whole. They took the song and they wrote their own lyrics, and it was like, "Yes, Mary knew." It was the song, and it was about Luke, in the book, and I was like, "Yes, she knew."
Yeah. Now that walking on water thing, that kind of tripped me out. But the Lord of Nations thing, I knew about that. No.
Oh, dude, that's so funny. Yeah, man, dude. So my listeners, I'm not doing a Noah's rant today. I think I gave enough Noah's rant.
You did.
I gave enough in the fake rant. It was enough to hold him over, kind of like Santa Claus. It wasn't the real thing, but it was enough to hold you over. It was enough.
Yeah.
I even as an 8, I can only rant so much, and I think I'm gonna rant it. I already ranted on singing Christmas carols in church, so we're good there. I ranted on baby Jesus already.
You threw the baby out with the bathwater.
And I ranted on Santa Claus. So I think we're covered. We're covered for today. So any last Christmas thoughts from you, Chase?
Jesus is the reason for the season.
Jesus' kingdom come to transform the world, to be a revolutionary is the reason for the season.
Yes. Oh man, no additional Christmas thoughts.
All right, man. I got. We're going out with "Do You Hear What I Hear?" But again, by Chase Stansel. So, by the way, a great song, a great song of Christmas songs.
So this one is unique. I will say this as you're about to play it.
Yeah, we're going right now.
I don't typically do the whole song. I only do just a portion of it because I only want the videos to be like a minute.
Yep.
But this is one of those songs where it's a story. You can't not sing the whole song. So it was really cool to blend the verses And so whereas you would typically in the traditional arrangements, you would have an echo. The echo is actually the lyrics of the next verse,
Nice.
which I was like, oh, that's so I enjoyed doing that. That was really fun.
That's awesome.
So, yes. Thanks for playing it. Thanks for enjoying it.
Yeah.
Flippapotami.
Yeah. Well, hey, this wraps up episode 59 of the Flipside podcast. Hope you enjoyed our Christmas special. Subscribe if you haven't already, and you have a couple days left to leave a review on iTunes. We will do a drawing to get free Flipside swag for anyone who leaves a review by Christmas Day will be in a drawing to win Flipside swag. And on the show notes, there's instructions on how to leave a review. That is your present, Flippapotami, to me. So if you want to give me a present, I already have Donkey Kong Country on Super Nintendo. What I would really like is a review from you on iTunes. And it helps people find the podcast, and it helps as they read your review to consider listening. So with that, Merry Christmas. Remember,
Feliz Navidad.
Jesus is the Messiah. He loves you, and we love you. We'll see you in the new year. Merry Christmas.